Have you ever noticed how popular the women's employee resource groups are in organizations, especially around International Women's Day? Keep listening because I'm going to explain why organizations love employee resource groups for women. I'm Dr. Jonathan Ashong-Lamptey, and I'm on a mission to help 1 million people like you to make your workplace more inclusive. Get your pen and paper ready because I'm going to give you 3 reasons why organizations love women's employee resource groups. International Women's Day is coming up, and organizations are falling over themselves to show how supportive they are of women in the workplace. But they're not doing that well. According to the World Economic Forum, at the current rate of change, the global gender gap will take 108 years to close. 108 years! We seriously need to shave some time off that, and employee resource groups do have a role to play, especially because they seem to be the thing to do for everyone who thinks that they're doing something about this problem. But why are they so popular? Here's 3 reasons why organizations love women's employee resource groups. The first reason is that many organizations still see diversity and inclusion only in terms of gender. I've had leaders in organizations tell me that we should sort gender out first and then look at the other stuff. Well, we've just said that'll take over 100 years. But why gender first? Part of the reason is the political and legal pressure to address the problem. In the UK, all employers with over 250 employees are required to report their gender pay data. That's a legal requirement. Countries from all around the world, from India to Italy, are requiring organizations to have male and female representation at board level. And of course, this is subject to the size of the organization. Also, let's take a look at the press. Look at how much bad behavior at work is being reported and is coming under the spotlight. And rightly so. Employee resource groups provide organizations with a quick and easy way of saying we're doing something, even if they've got no real intentions of doing anything meaningful. Senior leaders scramble around to be the executive sponsor of the women's resource group, and this also explains why they tend to get the lion's share of any of the budgets that are available. They're seen as a quick win, an easy signal. Before we move on to the next point, I want to talk about the importance of sharing. If you hear anything that you find interesting, then please share it with one other person that you think would find it useful. If you're finding this for the first time, make sure you check out the show notes. You can access these wherever you're listening to the podcast. The show notes have got details of all the reports and all the resources that are mentioned in the show. I've put this together for you so that you can go deeper into anything that we discuss here. Now let's get back to talking about women's resource groups. The second reason why organizations love women's employee resource groups is that they are a pipeline for the pipeline. I talked earlier about gender reporting, and if you look at the narrative that accompanies the figures, it's almost always the same. The story will be something like, women are paid less than men in this organization because they're underrepresented in senior leadership roles. Internally, these organizations will claim that they don't have a talent pipeline. They'll say that there's no process to move talented women up the career ladder. And for this reason, organizations that you know will quickly try to establish some kind of women's leadership development program to address the talent pipeline problem. But where do these women come from? Normally, they choose people who are already doing well. But what if your face doesn't fit? As a regular listener, you know that one of the 3 biggest problems that organizations experience when they try to become more inclusive is that they have difficulty engaging the people that they need to support. Employee resource groups are useful here because it's a group of people who are motivated. They share values, they share interests, they may even share an identity. This sounds like a pretty good place to look for talent. But when I say it's a pipeline for the pipeline, if you've got an effective employee resource group, it will already have some kind of career development activities. This could be simple as how to negotiate a pay rise, or planning the next 3 years of your career. If your group does this, think how easy it is for you to be chosen as a high potential employee. Now imagine that your group focuses on events and ignores what I've just said. How are you helping the careers of your members? The third and final reason why organizations love women's employee resource groups is that it's an easy way to engage men. If you haven't already, you're going to hear a lot of talk about allies. The narrative has moved on from these groups being by women and for women to recognizing the need to engage those who don't come to the events, who don't feel welcome in the group. Now, this may be because of assumptions about what the group represents. It may also be because the group appears to be divisive. Who knows? And this differs from organization to organization. But employee resource groups are a great way to start a dialogue, to share experiences, and for people just to simply learn. It allows men who want to help to have a place to do so without controlling the agenda. And this seems to be really popular. In everything I've said, you'll have noticed that I've spoken in very binary terms about gender here. What often gets ignored is the meaning of these gender-based groups in an LGBT context, the intersectional considerations. When I was speaking earlier, you're probably thinking about a cisgender heterosexual woman, and you may have imagined them as being white. Now, that's a common stereotype for employee resource groups concerned with women. And this leads me to the next point worth mentioning, which is race, ethnicity, and culture. Now, race, ethnicity, and culture are often confused and conflated, but what I want to talk about here is the growing belief that white, cisgender, heterosexual women have benefited from diversity initiatives more than any other demographic group. And in particular, black women of all descriptions are often excluded. I bring this up because as much as women's employee resource groups are popular, it doesn't always include all women. And therefore, it's not inclusive. And if it's not inclusive, it's not going to create the change that we want. So let's wrap this up. What are the key messages here? Here are 3 reasons why organizations love women's employee resource groups. 1, many organizations still see diversity and inclusion in terms of gender. 2, women's employee resource groups are a pipeline for the pipeline. And 3, it's an easy way to engage men in the conversation. So what do you think? Does your company have a group for women? Is it exclusive? Get in touch or leave a message. I would love to hear from you. If you've learned something from today's show, you should sign up to our insider list. It's free and you can stay ahead of the pack and get the best of everything that we produce. Thanks for listening, and I'll see you in the next episode.